Okay, so in this video we're going to take a look at standard lighting. So the first thing I'm going to do is build a cyc. So I'm just going to go into the front view. I'm going to go over in my create menu. I'm going to go to my shapes and then create a line. I'm going to click, and then go down and drag with this click until I get the angle I want, and then click again. To stop the function, I'm going to right click. I'm going to move to the perspective view and then hold down Alt and drag. And I'm going to want a straight line here. So just going to click, hold down Shift, click again, and then right click to end that function, so I have two lines, one being a curved and the other being straight. And then to get out of the line operation, if I right click one more time, I'm out of that. So I'm going to go to the create menu, geometry tab, and now we're going to go to and change it out of standard primitives and go down to compound objects. Here in compound objects, I'm going to click on loft, and right here we have create method, get shape or get path. I already have the path that I want to have this shape traced on selected, so I'm going to go ahead and say get shape. Click on that, and now it's made the cyc. So we can rotate this, but it has made it backwards, and it tends to do that all the time with this shape. So what I'm going to do is go underneath the Modify tab and take the loft, right click, and I'm just going to make it an editable poly. Now I'm no longer associated with these lines, so I can delete these from my scene. And for the cyc, I want the visible side to be on the inside of this curve, and it is currently on the outside. So I'm going to select it and then go into polygon mode, and down here under edit poly, so edit polygons, we're going to click on flip, and that's going to flip our normal. So let's make sure we have it selected, flip, and now we have the polygons on the correct side. So I'm just going to move this into position, and I just want it right above my grid. I'll scoot it back a little bit. And the other thing I want is I want a neutral tone here. So I'm just going to go in where it says loft 1, click, and I will pick a white for my objects, just so we can look with a default white shade, so we can really see what the shade, the colors look like, the shadows and highlights. So by turning your objects white, you get or light gray, you get a better idea of how bright your lights are, as well as how deep your shadows are going to be. So I'm going to go and create a couple other pieces of geometry here. I'm going to go back to my create menu. In the create menu, I'm under geometry, and I'm just going to click back to standard primitive. And I'm going to make a couple primitives so that we can look at the lighting. So I'll just click and make a sphere, right click to end that, and then I'm going to make a teapot, and I'll go to extended primitives and make a torus knot. So I click once to drag out the knot, click a second time to get the thickness, right click to end that operation. Now all three of my objects are going through my cyc. So I'm just going to select these and pull them up and out of the background, and just move them into a little bit better position. I'll pull my sphere forward. Okay, so now I have 3 objects. Let's just rotate this teapot a bit. And I want to take these objects and, again, turn them white. I could put a material on them, but the white shade is fine. So now that I have 3 objects in the scene on my cyclorama or cyc, just a background, I'm going to scale these a little. I'm going to hold down Control, grab my scale tool, and just scale these uniform. So now that I have 3 objects in the scene, I'm going to set up some standard lights. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that my renderer is set. So what we want to be using is the scanline renderer. Just be aware that a lot of the presets are going to drag you to the cloud renderer. And when you're playing with your render settings, just do a production render. Scanline renderer. We don't want anything advanced, just the standard scanline. And if you want to save the files, then you'll go to Common tab, Render Output, and pick the location that you want to save it. For right now, I'm not going to save. Just want to make sure I'm using the correct renderer. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the lighting. So again, under our Create tab, we're going to go over to our lights, and by default it goes to Photometric. We will look at Photometric in another tutorial, so we're just going to take a look at our standard lights. Target Spot, Target Direct, or a Free Spot, Free Direct. You'll also have a Skylight and an Omni. So we're just going to take a look at the Omni first. So the Omni, we're just going to click and place it into the scene, and then move it up. The Omni is an all-directional light. So one of the issues is, by default, with 3ds Max 2019, we don't see the lights in the scene. So if I were to come in and do a render, you'll see how the lights are actually working. So now you'll see our one Omni light in the scene. So let's go and fix this so we can see in our viewport our lighting. So we're going to go underneath our standard. We're going to go to Light and Shadows. And then we're going to come down to Illuminate with Scene Lights. And now we're going to see in our viewport what we saw when we did our render. So it's the same view. So now we can start manipulating these lights in the scene to get a look that we want. So I'm going to have the light selected. With the light selected, I'm going to go to the Modifier tab. Here we have our general parameters. Light type Omni. We can turn the light on or off. We can turn on maps or shadows. Right now it's using shadow maps. And let's take a render and take a look at that. So here it is rendered. Turn that on. So again, I just went under user define lights and shadows and made sure I had a check mark next to shadows. Okay, so the standard lights are the least sophisticated of the lights.